For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Shotgun Spratling for instant analysis of USC's 62-33 loss to the UCLA Bruins at home in the Coliseum. And Shotgun, I got to be honest, it feels like Groundhog's Day. Here we are yet again covering another embarrassing loss for the Trojans in what is really a season of embarrassing losses for this team.
Yeah, not just embarrassing, but historic. I mean, this is the third time this season at least that USC is a loss like none other before. You know, the first time for Utah and Oregon State in over 60 years for one, over 100 years for the other one, and now the most points ever scored by a UCLA team against USC, 62 points. 609 yards of total offense, and that didn't even include the kickoff that they returned for a touchdown as well. So they just put it on USC. It was embarrassing. All the fans were leaving in the third, fourth quarter. This team is just—it's not a very good team, and this is the type of loss that I think opens up some pocketbooks, some wallets for some boosters, because I think the USC fans are embarrassed for this one, and I know the defenders are embarrassed because, from this one. There were defenders that were kind of hiding behind their teammates as they were leaving because they didn't want to talk about this, or just ignoring the media. Todd Orlando kind of preempted and said, hey, I'll get you guys on Wednesday. He didn't want to talk about it. No one really wanted to talk about it. And the couple guys who did, I give those guys a lot of credit, some of the veterans that stepped up and talked to the media, because this is not a type of game that you want to talk to the media after, because embarrassing is the number one most operative word for this performance. It was just ugly for USC, and there were chances. They had a couple of opportunities where, hey, maybe it looked like they were getting back in the game, and they would just kill themselves. Whether it was the kickoff return for a touchdown after they kind of cut into UCLA's lead, or getting down to the 1 yard line and having to settle for a field goal. That happened a couple times. They get in the red zone. They threw an interception in the red zone. Just a lot of small things, and it's been the same thing over and over this season. The small things add up to big losses for USC.
Mm-hmm. What do you make of this defense? It almost seems like each performance they're regressing a little bit in that sense.
I mean, they are. There's a ton of injuries for them right now, and when you don't have playmakers out there, that's going to be a big issue. And some of their playmakers they expected to have at the beginning of the season just haven't been big-time playmakers. Xavier Alford made another interception. Chris Steele made an interception. So the first two passes Dorian Thompson-Robinson had for UCLA were interceptions. After that, he had 6 touchdowns. So, he rebounded really well, and that's the type of, you can start out real bad in a rivalry game, and it can go right downhill. But USC's defense couldn't get off the field when they had opportunities. They killed themselves with bad penalties. It would be a third and 6, 3rd and 7 down inside the 10-yard line, and they get an unsportsmanlike conduct after a play. Like, those are the type of penalties that have just been plaguing USC, just terrible things that happen, and it all stems from the culture within the team. It's something that some of the players that we did talk to mentioned. There's some guys that didn't dress today that probably could dress. They're probably healthy enough. That's what it feels like when you talk to some of the older players. They feel like that some of the young guys aren't putting in the effort that should happen, and that it comes back to the word again, embarrassing. That's embarrassing that USC has that type of culture right now that's divided in their locker room, that can put forth a performance like this. It wasn't just that they got beat on the field. They just don't have the mental toughness to rally in a game like this, and even when they get close, they end up hurting themselves with drops on the offensive side, or penalties, or giving up a huge special teams play like that. It's just it's accumulation of what has been building for this team for a few years and throughout this season. But yeah, there's not really much that the defense can do right now when you have some of your top playmakers like Drake Jackson is only limited to a few plays, and some of the other guys are banged up a little bit, and then just some guys that you expected to make some plays at the beginning of the year haven't been making those plays this season.
Mm-hmm. Now, over on offense, it was true freshman quarterback Jackson Dart's first start as a Trojan. What did you make of his performance?
He played fine. For a first start, they put 33 points up on the board as an offense. Missed opportunities once again, but it was just classic what this USC offense has been throughout this season. Not a huge difference. If Keaton Slovis would have been in there, probably a similar performance. The Graham Harrell talked about after the game. He thought he did some really nice things. He made a couple of big freshman mistakes. Both the interceptions, he could have did a little bit better on. The first interception, if he throws it out, he has some room open to Gary Bryant. Throw it where his guy gets it or no one gets it. Great play, though, by Quentin Lake to tip the ball to himself for an interception. But the second one in the red zone, he kind of throws it up on the run. He had some space. He could have set his feet, got a little bit more behind it, throws a little short. But, overall, the offense moved with him again, but it comes down to them not being able to finish drives, and it's been the same thing all season.
Mm-hmm. There were some bright spots, though. Vavai Malapai, who has kind of been the third-string running back at this point, had the hat trick, 3 touchdowns on the night. Gary Bryant with a career high. What did you make of some of those bright spots in this embarrassing loss?
Yeah, I think we talked about Xavier Alford getting an interception, his third interception in 2 games. I think he's been playing really well for them. But those guys on offense, and that's what we're looking for. Keontae Ingram had another nice day. He had 96 yards, I believe, rushing, though he left late and he got banged up. And it's kind of telling. All their playmakers that you expected to have at the beginning of the year just aren't healthy for them, or aren't making the plays that you would expect them to make. With Drake London out, with Drake Jackson limited to a handful of snaps, and then at the end of the game with Keontae Ingram not in there, just not a lot of guys to go to. Gary Bryant, I thought, stepped up and finally was the playmaker we thought he could be down the field, getting behind the defense, using that speed, and Jackson Dart hit him a couple times for some nice pickups there. And then Vi, it was great to see. Great to see him. It's kind of culminating his career. He's been basically benched this season. Darwin Barlow moved in and became the number 2 back, but for him to come in and have, he's been granted it's not a Bruin killer because, UCLA obviously walks away with this win with an easy win, but he has been really good against UCLA in his career and just continued that today, running really tough and getting some tough yards down by the goal line, running through some tackles to get into the end zone. And that's the type of thing they can normally, some of the young guys look to and say, oh, that's what I want to aspire to be, but it doesn't feel like you've got everyone on the same page, and that's, been an issue for them all season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like the frustration is building in the locker room. We kind of got hints of that in post-game interviews, but I thought it was interesting. You can ask at this point, especially if you're a USC fan, what is there left to play for in this season besides bowl eligibility? But Nick Figueroa talked about what Vic So'oto told the defensive line group after the game, and it seemed like it was a good note going forward.
Yeah, he said things are going to be different. This is Vic So'oto through Nick Figueroa, but Fig said the message was, hey, things will be different next year. Obviously, they know coaching changes are coming and different things are going to happen, but he said this is when you start building towards next season. You can start putting in the good work that will give you that momentum going into the offseason. I talked to Jacob Lichtenstein and asked him, similar questions. He was questioning, does that mean you guys aren't trying for the end of this season? Does it not matter to kind of get into that bowl eligibility? They said no, they want to, if possible, finish on a 3-0 stretch, because that gives you momentum going into the offseason saying, okay, we're starting to build a little bit. New coaching staff comes in, and you try to go from there. But, yeah, that's what they're looking at. They want to get bowl eligible, but it's going to be hard to do against a BYU team that's very similar to UCLA as far as they can run downhill, and USC showed today they couldn't stop it again.
Yeah. Like I said at the top, we've covered a loss like this a lot this season, so there's not really much more to cover here. Any final thoughts, Shotgun, before we wrap it up?
I mean, a new coach can't get here soon enough for them to help with those culture issues, to instill what can go on, and to help out with the recruiting class and everything else. But as soon as they get someone in, hopefully then you start seeing some changes, and that's going to be some roster turnover. That's going to be some guys going to get pushed out of this program. You're going to have to go hit the transfer portal, try to bring in some older guys. So we'll see how this program evolves from here, but I think this is one of the lowest spots in the last 20 years for sure, if not longer. Putting 62 points. Let's just put that out there again. 62 points, 609 yards. Dorian Thompson-Robinson had said something about trying to really beat USC during the summer. That was one of his big goals. He finally leaped over somebody. He's been trying for about 3 years now. He's been tried it 3 or 4 times, but he got one, a defender, and got into the end zone. He had a monster game after those first 2 interceptions. And I think USC, I think it should be plastered up this whole offseason. Whichever new coach comes in, put 62-33 up around everywhere. It should be a constant reminder for the players that are returning from this team that this is unacceptable in this program. And I think the fans showed their displeasure with it. They left. And, Jacob Lichtenstein, I asked him, how's that feel to see all the fans leave? And he said, it's kind of disappointing that they don't have your back, but it's hard for, why would a fan want to have this team's back right now? And, are they putting forth the effort? Some guys are. Yeah. Some guys are, but the entire program is not right now. So, that's what leads to a performance like this. It seems like there's a divide, there's a culture issue, and if the new coach needs to come in and get that stuff figured out immediately, or else it's going to be the same thing over and over like we've seen all season.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up here from the Coliseum. For Shotgun Spratling, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out USCfootball.com.